Ollie, first, man, great to have a chance to meet you. Are you in Toronto as we speak?
I'm in Toronto as we speak. What about you?
I'm living in Toronto, man.
Okay.
Up in the West End. Is this your first time in Toronto, or
First time, first time.
what do you think about the city?
I love it. I wish it would have warmed up a little bit for me, but I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna come back.
Well, we definitely want you to come back, especially and do us a favor, man. Bring that good vibe and great music too. You have I don't know, man. When I was growing up, I always came up with a term myself, and it was from an old album called E-Man Groove. And the reason why I always love using that term, E-Man Groove, and this is back in late 60s, early 70s, is because E-Man Groove to me is an individual who you can't define, but does so many different things and does so many different things well. You are to me in the category of E-Man Groove because
Wow.
you cannot break down your music and say you are this, you are that, you are that, you are that, you are that. Talking about your life story, you can't say you're this, you're that, you're that, you're that because you've just done everything. Like,
Wow.
are you like this? I don't know this movie waiting to be made or what?
Hey, look from your lips to God's ears. I like how you put that movie waiting to be made. I like to think that way. I just think, man, yeah, the journey's been incredible. Sometimes it feels like I've had like seven different lives, right? But I'm just blessed, man. I'm grateful to be able to connect with music in a way that allows me to reach a wide audience and to do different genres really well. And I'm just gonna keep challenging myself and keep expanding, you know?
Before we get into your story, though, I want to jump into the genres. What
Okay.
do you call yourself? Because you can be placed in so many different categories. It's crazy. In fact, sometimes I feel like your music came out in the wrong time. It should have been in the '80s where nobody cared, and you could have been placed anywhere. You
Could
know
have
what
been
I'm
placed
saying?
anywhere, huh? Could
Yeah.
should have been in the 80s. Yeah, I'm a multi-genre artist, I think that's the way I've always thought of myself. Like really never wanted to be put into a box. I tried it, it did fit, I tried to just do one thing, but then it felt like I was neglecting so many other parts of myself because when the way music comes to me, it doesn't say, hey, I'm going to give you this kind of song. It's just like words and the melody. And, I just kind of do whatever's best for the song. And sometimes it comes out as an R&B song, or it might come out as a rap song, or it might come out as a country song. So multi-genre is like what I like to say, because I really think music is a universal language. And, we got enough barriers and separation bars in society as it is. Like, we don't need to bring them into music, in my opinion. I think that should be the one place where it should just be about how's it make you feel, you know?
See, you should have been top 40. You represent top 40. What top 40 is supposed to be for radio, not what it
Thank you,
is
man.
now. That's why I say back in the day too.
I received that.
Where does all of those genres, a love of music come from?
Really from just growing up, really loving authentic soul music. And when I say soul, like, I think soul music lives in any genre of music, because to me, like,
Yes.
what the through line is about really having your heart and soul into what's happening and really being, putting passion into whatever it is you're singing. And I think we live in a time where soul music has become very like mass manufactured, and it's less a lot of times, and there's still a lot of great artists that aren't like this, don't get me wrong, but I think, more often than not, we hear a lot of songs that may sonically sound good, they may be quote unquote hits, but they're really soulless. Like the artist is not really connecting to the words, and you can tell a lot of times, but like when you see performances, it's like, oh, that kind of fell flat. I thought I loved this song, but watching it live, it's like it's not the same. And yeah, I just grew up on the artists, that you really had to put your heart into what you do, to make it, to be known. And I just always made that my bar.
That's one of the things I miss. And again, no disrespect to the artists of
Right.
today, but I grew up when an artist was performing and he was so connected to the song, he was crying or
Right.
he was getting angry. or he was just so happy, and the people in the audience were connecting in that way too. Is that becoming a lost art in your opinion?
I think so. I think I won't say it's lost. I think it's just harder to find because the floodgates are so much wider now to
Hmm.
where you got to do a lot more sifting to get to the real authentic artists like myself and find them. And because of I think the mass and kind of consolidation of radio and the way we discover music now, it's
Uh,
much harder for authenticity to break through when people they're just caring about profits and who's got the most views, no matter how you got those views. You could yeah, you know what I mean. Which has nothing to do with talent most of the time. So I just think it's more difficult.
what about storytelling? What is that for you? How important?
Storytelling is everything. I think I try to the way I write songs is I try to every song is a movie. So you said you used movie earlier. Like for me, every song is a movie. I'm a new character in every song. And I try to, when I'm writing a song or I'm in the studio recording it, it's like I'm an actor. It's like I'm figuring out the whole scene. What are they doing? What were they doing before the song started? What's it look like, smell like? The whole thing. A lot of that, method actors would do, and because I'm trying to get the listener to get into this story with me, like jump into this universe of this emotion, because everyone has the same emotions. There's only so many songs you could write. It's like either uh, uh, we're in love or we're not in love. You know what I mean? Or I'm happy, I'm sad. It's like 10 things that you can write about, right? And so I think storytelling, finding different ways to tell those really common emotions is important, and that's what we're made of. We're all made of stories, so I believe being a storyteller in this way is a really important role.
Let's get into your story some more because this is the part I was not sure about. Now, were you in the army before music, or were you in the army? Like that's the part I'm not sure because I know there's an element I read about with 9/11. Can you explain all that, please?
Yeah, I did serve in the armed forces. I joined 3 weeks before 9/11. So I had a dream of being, you know, in the music industry and making music for a living since I was a kid.
Hmm.
But before that actually manifested itself and I got that opportunity to do that, I was in the military, and I was young. I was 19 I was at 17 when I joined, and then like 2 years later we got activated to go to Iraq, and
Wow.
I was one of like 50 people that were in my unit. We were on the bus. We were getting ready to go to leave, like my hometown in Louisiana, and we were getting ready to go. And I'd been training for like 9 months. I was in college at the time, and they pulled us out of college, and I became full-time Army. And um, they called my name. Following names fall out of formation. Get your stuff off the bus. I thought I was in trouble. I thought I'd done something wrong, or and I got off the bus with about 40 something other people. It was about 50 of us. My unit had like 200 and I think 80 people, and everybody who got off that bus didn't go to Iraq. Everybody who was on the bus went to Iraq, and that was like the first kind of fork in the road in my life. That was just that was all chance. The reason why was we were what was called rear detachment. So because of just like my MOS, which is your job, there were a lot of people. I guess in my job, I was a supply guy. I was young, so I wasn't mission critical. So I guess they just made those decisions, however they made them, and I ended up being one of those people that did go, and that's kind of when my life started to take a turn, and I really started to um, put all my efforts towards getting out of Louisiana and getting to LA.
So you get to LA. Three places I've always said 1,000 times: Nashville, LA, New York. Three best places if you want to be a singer songwriter, especially a songwriter.
Mm-hmm.
You go to LA. What was the atmosphere like then going to LA and learning your craft?
Yeah, well, before I always knew I wanted to go to LA. That was just always just a fantasy. And I didn't know anyone in California at all, except one person that I had met in a chat room back in the old school Yahoo chat room days. I used to go, yeah, I used to go and into these R&B chat rooms on the Saturday. I was bored. You know, my mom would be, you know, I'd be finished cleaning up or whatever, and I'd be like, "Hey, can I get on the computer?" You know, back in the days when you had to ask your mom to get on the computer. You know, you could just go on the computer. Uh, so can I get on the computer? And she'd be like, "Okay, yeah, go ahead." And then, you know, I'd be in these Yahoo chat rooms singing, you know, in like the R&B chat rooms and with the microphone. And I met a young lady in this chat room that lived in Sacramento, and we ended up online dating before I guess that was even a term, you know, this early 2000s. And she was the only person I knew in California. And after I didn't go to Iraq with my unit down in Louisiana, and then my other friends were like in the streets, so they were getting in trouble. You know, one of my best friends went to prison, and then I was like, you know, I got to get out of here. I just kind of saw the writing on the wall for me. And she was like, well, come to Sacramento, like come out here. You know what I mean? And I was like, well, it ain't LA, but it's closer. You know, it's Northern California. You know, it went from 8 hours to, you know, from where I was. So that's where I actually first moved to California, and stayed there about 2 years. I was in the Army. I had to transfer my unit, and I had a full-time Army job there. And while I was in that job, I signed a record deal because I was sending my using MySpace. I was sending my demos on MySpace, and ended up getting discovered by these A&Rs from Interscope. And moving down to LA from Sacramento, from Louisiana, I mean, it was a complete culture shock because I went from, you know, living in
Yeah.
a little one-bedroom apartment, working on bass, wearing the uniform every day, to, you know, moving down to LA with my producers at the time, into those like $20 million mansion. And it was like everything I saw on MTV Cribs, you know, just like all of a sudden it was like a whole new world. So it was definitely a culture shock.
So if I'm remembering correctly as a music reporter, the two big things that were going on back then were boy bands and hip hop.
Yep.
So how do you define yourself as, I'm assuming at that time, an R&B artist?
Yep.
And R&B was not doing great. Saying, yeah, they were, yes, no, that's a lie. They were doing well. Actually, in Canada, R&B artists were doing very well.
Okay.
But it wasn't the juggernaut of what we were seeing then, with boy bands and hip hop. How did you cut through all of that to make sure that your voice was heard?
Man, at that time, honest, Rudy, I didn't really have know what my voice was at that time, really. You
Mhm.
know, I was still in the on the mindset at that time of like, you know, these were the days where you felt like you had to be discovered. It
Right.
was like, I gotta get discovered, like, you know, and then they'll tell me, like, I'm showing up with these gifts, and it's like, hey, what do y'all think? Who should I be? Kind of thing. You know what I mean? I was always, you know, very, very much like a leader within myself. But I think as an artist, I just wasn't as developed as I would have thought I was at that time. You know, now looking back on it, you know, so I think when it comes to like sound, I didn't really have a sound at that time. I was really still in the stage of like mimicking. I could sing really good, but I was like chasing whatever. Oh, whatever's hot. If this is the hot record, then I would go in the studio and I'm trying to make a record like that record. You
Right.
know what I mean? So I was doing a lot of that at the time, and um, you know, I don't regret it because it really helped me to, you know, get my hours and find my sound and really just kind of sharpen the tool. But yeah, I was definitely kind of floating in the wind on who I wanted to be as an artist. I hadn't really figured that out at 21 yet.
I'm curious, did you ever think of going on American Idol?
Uh, uh, I did. I did. And actually, I'd been on AGT before, America's Got Talent, which is a similar kind of format. And then no shade to them, but you know, I dropped out at the second. I I did the whole thing and got all the standing ovations and the claps and all that stuff. But then when I got that second round of contracts, I was like, nah, this ain't it. Because it was late.
Jump in. Ruben stuttered. I still remember when I spoke with him after he had won.
Yeah.
I said, "What's the one thing that you've learned that you didn't know before?" He said, "Always read your contract."
Always read your contracts. Yeah. No, I think by the time I went on one of those shows on AGT, I've been on two shows. By the time I went on AGT, um, I was already doing music and filming TV, so I understood the business. It was later. I understood the business a lot more. I was already making money in sync licensing, so I understood the value of music a lot more. And when you get those contracts and stuff, you're like, man, they want all this and this. Just I realized it was just a TV show, so I didn't take that risk.
A lot of people don't really think about this because they think about, being on stage and doing
Right.
this and that. Having your music put in TV and films and things like that is huge.
Yeah.
And you were able to do that, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sync licensing for me has been such a blessing in my life. And what's funny about me getting into sync licensing, I would have never gotten into sync licensing, or the way I found sync licensing rather was through working a day job. So I basically I had this record deal, early on from when I was like 21 years old with Interscope. Thought I was like, doing it. And then the dream turned into a nightmare. It was like a 2 year, I actually asked to get out of my deal myself. Like I was like, hey, because I was like, this isn't going anywhere. And I didn't like the control element that it had kind of taken over my life, it was almost like, the Wizard of Oz in a lot of ways. You always dream about going to a place, and then you get there and you get to look behind the curtain, and you're like, oh, this ain't really what it looks like from the outside. And that was kind of my first record deal experience. And then from there, I went on to live in LA. It's expensive. So I was like, all right, you gonna go back home to Louisiana, or you gonna tough it out here. So that's when I found I had to start working my first job ever, like my actual job, because I went high school, Army, record deal. And so I never really had a job until I was probably like 22 or 23, and I got into sales. And I was just taking all kinds of different sales jobs, telemarketing, bothering people at 10 in the morning, trying to sell them vacation packages and all kinds of different, yeah, just straight boiler room kind of stuff, man. And but during that process, and that lasted some years. That lasted some years of really struggling, back kind of like a fall from grace. It felt like a lot. I think I had a lot of depression around that, but somewhere along the lines, I found digital marketing. I applied as an opener for this digital marketing SEO company, search engine optimization. I never heard what that was or didn't know anything about really the internet. I wasn't really, savvy like that at that time. And that position changed my life over the course of some years. And I became one of the top salespeople in the office. And, the first time I really started to make real money, like six figures. And, but the guy who was in the office next to me, they used to call me Kobe because I put up big numbers on the board. And the guy who was next to me, he was like, one day he calls me in his office. His name was Rich. And he shows me this check from Fox Sports for $8,000. And he was like, yeah, man, and he's a guy, he's like an older guy, like beer belly. He was not like a face of music. And I had no idea that was a thing, but he was like, yeah, I make like little, I make bumpers and stingers for Fox, and I get these residual checks. And I was like, tell me more. So he breaks down the whole game to me over the course of some months and stuff, and really kind of became my first mentor in that, told me how to put together my catalog, gave me some advice on like who to reach out to and stuff. And I kind of just went head first into building a catalog and focusing on getting my music and film and TV. And that was in about 2007, 2008. And, from then going fast forward, I've had hundreds of placements in film and TV on everything from Grey's Anatomy to Ray Donovan to, all the Viacom shows. I did a deal with Viacom, and you service a lot of music for their reality shows. So yeah, it's just been a blessing. But looking back on it, it's kind of one of those things where every time I get a statement and I'm going through my statement now, I was talking with someone about this the other day. I was like, the first time I got on TV, it was a big thing. I was like, we had a party in my friend's living room and everyone was there. I was like, okay, wait, be quiet. And, we're listening, oh, my song. And it's just it's like, fast forward to now, it's like where I don't even know. I just get the statements. I look at them sometimes I don't. And it's like, you kind of take it for granted
Yeah.
like how big that was for me at the time. But I'm so glad that it found me because it's been able to help me not do bad deals because I wasn't coming from a place of desperation, money. And I think when you really need money as an artist, you are more at risk of doing a bad deal or doing a deal out of like desperation or with people that really might not be best for you. So that's my story with that.
I'm so happy for you, man. I'm
Thank
so happy for you. Let's get into some of the new music now,
you. Yeah,
man. Because it has to do with the females.
yeah,
And
for the
so I like to
ladies.
start it off that way. So I always like to make this part official. What is the name of the new single and what is it about? And how does it represent you in this point in your career?
Yeah, yeah. So the latest single is called "Some Girls," and it's really about a guy that has found someone special and is like really, really, really talking to her and letting her know that she stands out from any of the other women that he's encountered. And I think every man at some point, especially the older you mature and if your values are in line, you recognize something great when it comes across, and I think this song is one of those classic love songs that really just represents that.
I love the video, man.
Thank you.
It again. It goes back to me. I keep going back 80s, and the reason why I say 80s, not so much as some of the campy videos, but it's just that it was one of those videos where like a Lionel Richie kind of
Yeah,
video where a story is being told
yeah, yeah.
in the video. In fact, you could separate the music and you could separate the video, and you still have a story that's being told
You still
both
have a story.
ways.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why it's funny you said Lionel Richie. I was probably channeling some of that energy for sure. And I directed the video and came up with the script. I'm a little budding filmmaker, and I really just like how music and visuals like come together. It's like hearing a song by itself is one thing, but it's like when you could put a good visual story over that too as well. That to me is just like chef's kiss.
Now, is this song going to be part of or is it part of an album, EP? And is there
Absolutely.
more music coming out?
Absolutely. It's a part of an album. So I am finishing up the first album right now. And it's well, it's 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 definitely something that I'm looking forward to. I've got two albums in the can. And this will be coming out really soon, the whole album. I'm just gonna drop the whole album and just keep it pushing.
And we said there's another single that's coming out too.
Yeah, the next single is called "Kicking Up Dust," which is a good club vibe. It's like hip hop, country, pop. So it's really more braggadocious. It's more like um, just new sheriff in town energy.
And are you going to be touring? Any chance? Are you going to be on any festivals or?
Yeah, so I'm actually working on CMA Fest is coming up. I live in Nashville, so that's coming up. So I'm planning on doing some things around CMA Fest, and I actually also I perform a lot at a venue that I own in Nashville as well. So yeah, so I actually entrepreneurship has been a big part of my journey. Talking about with getting into sync license earlier, being in commission sales for a long time, really learning how to set my own limits, financially, or and it's just always been an important part for me to be really vertically integrated. I look up to people like James Brown. People don't know, like James Brown, he not only was the hardest working person in show business, but for a reason, he not only made great music, produced, wrote, but he owned his pressing plant. He owned the radio station to play his music. He had his own touring company, like management. Sam Cooke, same thing. First Black artist to own their publishing. So I'm really I really like to think of the way I approach music in that way of like, of ownership and having something that I can pass down, to my kids one day and also, be a platform for other people.
Cannot wait. Cannot wait. My brother, I gotta say, this has been an amazing conversation. I want to say
Yes,
thank you so much for the interview. Thank you so much for the great music. Cross fingers that sometime in the future we can do this one on one.
let's do it.
And one of my bucket list is to come to Nashville.
Please.
So if I can do that, I'm definitely coming over to your place.
Please, yeah, we open so I have a bar open now that's called the Corner Wedgwood. And we do live music there. We just had our first comedy show there a couple weeks ago. So I'm producing all kinds of events there. But I've got a larger event space called Aura Lounge that opens in September. And that one, you got to come to that one for sure because it's going to be the sexiest nightlife place in Nashville. And yeah, we'd love to host you. VIP, baby.
I love it. And before we go, please say hello to whoever walked by twice behind
Oh,
you.
yeah, yeah. That's my some girls. That's my some girls, Kristen, right there.
Thank you so much for the interview, man. And again, congratulations on the career and the music.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you, Rudy. Thanks for having me.